Hi, so me and my friend Duncan were playing Roblox one day when we just started to search for random search terms and join games to find some funny shit and probably look something up like frick word bad word or worm simulator or YN obby or you have to eat 2,000 motor vehicles. And then we stumbled across this game somehow. After a couple of hours of stupid stuff, something very interesting happened. And honestly, I think anything can happen after looking for the games like the ones we do. And it wasn't until we stumbled across this game without any players, with an interesting picture, and an interesting description, and an interesting creator, and an interesting favorites page, where I found my favorite game ever. So Duncan and I start traversing in this game after trying to break out because we think it's funny. And even the death is extra prolonged, trippy, and super unnecessarily long.
It takes so long, man.
Believe it or not, that's actually what I love about this game the most. It's a walk, that's all this game is, it's a walking game. This game is about walking around all these different dimensions, where each game always has some deep fried ass filter, or some janky game physic on, or just something unexplainable about it that keeps it a bit unique.
Oh shit, there's a dude.
Walking on, over, around, and in these unique paths to progress through the game. After a few games, we were finally teleported to something that seemed like a main plaza type game, and I raced to discover where this series of games was supposed to begin. Yup. So, we started our hunt from the beginning, and played the whole thing through.
The hood irony guy. Hood irony guy walking sideways.
Went to sleep, continued it the day after, and completed it. Then we moved on and played more stupid shit. But a few years have gone by since then, and Duncan doesn't want anything to do with this game. Which is fine and normal, but I've come back and played it a few more times than I can remember, and have really gotten lost playing this game alone. I was also high as shit, that does not matter, and I want to play this again, so this time, I'll be recording. If you liked that intro, and want this entire video to be just like that, I have some bad news for you. I'm lazy, and I'm gonna slow things down a little. I'm not saying that the rest of this video is uncut raw footage, but it's nowhere near as fast-paced as the first couple minutes. So I load into Vaporwave Plaza, and immediately notice this guy beating on another guy. Both the victim and the abuser have something to say. So I click on the question mark above the victim's head, where they introduce themselves as the creator of the game. I ask them about their oblong-shaped head, where they respectfully tell me to mind my damn business. Then I talk to the other one, where they express their tremendous joy, and concluded with a humble acknowledgement of one another's financial position. These guys are just here to inform me, one warning me to pay attention, and the other telling me to join a group which promises to give you power and announce your being whenever you play this game. I follow this alluring white glowing line until I'm distracted with what's underneath me, and find these beings who also have something to say. This one, complaining about the space being consumed by the cars across from us, as it totally ruins the feng shui of this place. That one stand in part 6? I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what you're talking. Me neither, man. This next being, waiting indefinitely, and another one I inspected buying flavored air. I then proceeded to check out the cars that the first guy was complaining about, and took a picture with my new whips. I then listened into a conversation, and then had to look up what the hell a harakiri hold is. I actually did know what it was. I just knew it as seppuku instead, which is not pretty. I was quickly enamored by the beauty of this wiggly, watery arrow. Then I found another wisdom-sharing being, explaining that this was the beginning to our grand adventure. Then this sign told me to go to the Rainlands, so off to find the Rainlands we went. Welcome to the plaza. Very welcoming. Then I walked into this place called Studio 19, and took over this guy's job for a bit to try to help him remember what his job was about. I got bored after a while, and left him to work away, as this kind of day job was a bit above me. I then clomb to the top floor, only to find a wide bag that I believe has summoning powers, because after I fiddled with it, someone had joined the server. Papeni Katrahana, or Salt for short. I continued, and met this person who has the grueling task of standing here. Help. What? Nothing. I greeted Salt before heading to the Rainlands. and surprisingly was greeting back, just as I was about to head through this canvas to teleport to this place, so I quickly said my goodbye.
To the Rainlands!
The Rainlands were rainy, like the name, which is probably a good thing, unlike Iceland and Greenland, which I believe to be a mistake and you can't tell me otherwise. Also, let me quickly explain to you why I have an incredibly bright lighter in my inventory. It's a game pass. I mainly purchased this lighter to support the game, but also so I could pretend to puff up a few ciggies while on this adventure. Turns out, it's an enormous help for some parts of the game that you'll see later. I made my way through this place, where this shiny black cube teleported me deep into the forest. I did a minimal amount of exploring until turning back to see this white figure hanging from a tree. Then I clomb a ladder to get a better view. Do you see how much better that sounds? And upon this branch, I was met with a message giving me a code to the first door back in Vaporwave Plaza. 1130. I then walked back where I came and used the shiny black cube's counterpart, the shiny white cube, where I then took my short way down and rubbed up against this portal until it took me back to Vaporwave Plaza. Salt was still here, so I shared my newfound knowledge and on I went. I was pleasantly surprised to find that the code worked.
Yeah!
And I almost forgot to close the door behind me, which is incredibly impolite. Salt responded, seemingly a bit confused until they changed their mind and accepted my wisdom. Yes, I did see the hanging in the Rainlands. Apparently, I'm not being told everything because we're in the danger zone, but I was given enough information to know where my next steps should be taking me. I followed into one of my beloved shiny cubes, where I was taken to a room with critical information. But first, I had to admire this banger that had just come on. I was given the next code and went on my way to find this so-called eco shop inside Palm Mall, where I shared more knowledge with Salt. They seemed a bit confused again, so I hit them with some comedic genius, but before I knew it, they were already gone. I made my way into Palm Mall's canvas and was introduced to an announcement that I unfortunately couldn't understand. I also like this quote.
I like that.
I admired some artwork, then I was offered something that I just couldn't turn down. So I bought a life, I think. After, I met this guy who seems to have a problem on his hands.
It's right behind me, isn't it?
Up the stairs, I found Eco Shop, which was a lovely looking place. Then I cashed this guy out, because it seemed like he had been waiting here for a while.
Will that be everything? You have a good one. Yep, okay.
This window was odd, and I enjoyed the viewing platform accompanying it, then explored a bit. I got a bit scared after realizing I hadn't written down the last code, but because of my interaction with Salt, I was able to recall the number. Thank you, Salt. I then chatted with the next being, where I was warned about the seriousness of my adventure. Then I was given the next code I needed, and off to the theater I went. This cube asserted its power it had over me by toying with me a little, but it ultimately felt bad and let me go. I went to explore the mall before leaving, but everything in my body told me to turn around after meeting this floating being. It just felt like I was a weakling after meeting two powerful forces back to back and thought I should retreat home before the danger I was now aware of had caught up. I pulled out my lighter in a fear, only to be teleported near the entrance where I was now capable of floating. I got a bit carried away and started to traverse with my lighter, where I found a dimensional wormhole from the mall to the eco shop, then continued my dimensional search upward. It didn't last that long, so I respawned and took my leave. Back in Vaporwave Plaza, I found a sign instructing me to buy a game pass. I was 2 steps ahead of you. Speaking of steps, I hadn't been taking them as fast as I could have.
I forgot you could run.
Especially now with the fact that I was in danger. I also wanted some free popcorn as soon as possible. Also, this guy's stupid. I don't know if anyone cares, but this sign here says theater with an R-E, and when I load into the next zone, would you look at that? It's theater with an E-R. That's pissing me off a little. My anger didn't last long as I loaded into this place and found another board of words that I quite liked. For some reason, I couldn't get over the fact that I had seen more than one portal, but I made my way to the door with my code after a couple of errors and forgot to follow my own etiquette and closed the door behind me. I hope you can forgive me. I walked into this big canvas with a door reading 1984. And I fell into a deep, dark pit that I didn't feel very safe inside. I didn't remember this from the first time that I played, and this game was very confusing to me for a bit, to the point where I reset to see if I was doing something wrong. Turns out, this one is just really dark, but luckily, I had the perfect fix. I used the light from the bottom of my lighter and navigated my way through the darkness until I could see again. I then did some parkour up these pillars and followed along this path when the song abruptly came to an end, darkening my screen along with it. The song quickly came back and re-illuminated the world, in the process scaring the shit out of me, but I continued into another canvas.
Let me out.
Now this Neo Hoth place wasn't much better. Oh, this isn't much better. But at least I could see a bit more. I was unable to further inspect this crime scene, but I had no problem with that. And I turned around and traversed through this Arctic tunnel. Then I found another quote that I like, and proceeded to put myself in imminent danger, and took a little more than a single step past this airlock.
Oh, did I take damage or am I tweaking?
Both. Now in Neo Hoth's sequel, Neo Hoth 2, True Blue, I made my way past some bubbles and some pillars, through a crack in the wall where a disembodied hand was reaching out to me. I touched this glowy wall to be teleported into Jericho's cabin, which is a Japanese-style wooden place. Now, side note, the first time that I played this game, Roblox still had custom audios on their platform. Now, Roblox is cheap and doesn't have time to deal with copyright problems, and they made the corporate decision to remove this wonderful feature. And because of that, Jericho's cabin used to sound a lot different than it does now. Even when you go to the wiki, there's no sign of this song ever existing. Side note, if you're still here, you're rather interested in the game or you're interested in me. So I highly recommend that you check out this wiki if you're ever bored one day. After walking up to this door, I remembered that this wasn't where I was supposed to be yet, and that most likely I had to backtrack, which upset me.
I just realized I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing or where I am right now.
I went back to the theater, where I stopped to go to the bathroom and read my walkthrough I made from a couple years back. Obviously, the plant was still kicking in because I left my recording on for about 15 minutes.
Did I stop recording?
Turns out I was in the right place. I just had to walk around a little more to find a hole in the ground.
I don't think that was the right hole.
Not that hole. So I traveled to the other hole in the far corner from where I spawned, and upon reaching the bottom, I was teleported to the place that we all know and love, City and Abyss.
Aha! Oh, I'm naked.
I was finally back to the place that had caused me so much confusion, now with complete clarity as to where I was. I traveled through the random terrain, which transitioned into bricky terrain, where I traveled to a question mark place. This place reminded me of Neo Hoth 2, True Blue, but was first person and didn't let me run. The soundtrack was also fire here. I was led into yet another question mark game and went on my merry way. I was quickly progressing through the games that Duncan and I had already seen when I realized that these games hit super different when playing alone. Although having company is far more entertaining while playing this game, drowning in my thoughts while isolated playing this game is a unique feeling that I've grown quite fond of. I spotted this knife, and something inside told me that I had to get a closer look. Then I fell, and I was clearly livid this time, because I was fed up with the idea of becoming Sisyphus and staying here forever.
Oh man.
I made my way up the tower and across the paths to the next game, which was yet again another question mark game. This one was my least favorite because this angry, scary, evil little guy will teleport to you no matter where you are and will chase you and damage you if you aren't constantly running from him. Somehow, I found the exit with a skewered corpse and a note containing the next code I need. My relief was cut short.
Oh no!
As that slimy, hostile, tricky goblin had found me once again, and I quickly evacuated to this big-ass slide, which leads to another slide and a portal back to Jericho's cabin. I opened the big door with my new chant.
Come on, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4. A big fat one and another more.
And found another note waiting for me, which gave me a new code and an order to tell this Deca Beta guy to boot up Gate 7 and make amends to the webinar. I also discovered this plunger, and I was impressed with its sheer size, and thanked it for being there.
Thank you.
Into the webinar I went, from the portal behind the pillar, and I ended up in this place known as the Field of Corporate Excellence. Now, I don't know what destroyed my frames here for a split second,
Whoa.
but I am willing to bet that it is corporately excellent. I found this path with a red floor, then a door, then another door, and a door which required the code that I had found. There were some floaty transparent blocks in the sky that I had some fun playing with until I was led to another door, which led to another door, which led to some stairs, which led to another door, and another door, and another door, and another, and another, and another, and one more, just kidding, and another, and another, and another, and another. Then there were no more doors. I followed this glass tunnel until I found a ladder and a truss next to each other, which I found funny because the last time I played this, both Duncan and I were unable to climb this ladder on Xbox, and I had to play on my phone just to pass this part. So thank you, Salient, for adding this emergency measure. This half mirror, half concrete path was waiting for me at the top, with a few withered trees to break the monotony. What is this shit? It's like you heard me and took the truss out from this part just so you could laugh at me. You were only messing with me just to get a rise out of me for your personal entertainment. Never mind, I can climb this just fine. At the top was a seated being waiting for my arrival, where they told me that my next goal was onward, and that there was no way in hell that they couldn't have been an inside man because they told me where the rendezvous point was. Of course, why didn't I think of that? I'm sorry I even asked. So I continued to find a pillar with a note attached that informed me that my next destination was Flamingo, Miami. I then went into the new bleak world where I clomb down this ladder and found a tunnel leading to another ladder I could climb, so I clomb my way up and back down and started swimming in this unknown body of water. It was fun while it lasted, but I learned that there was no way up to the actual path I needed to be on. I wasn't upset at all, as this path wasn't that long.
Ah, God.
After my walk up the real path, I said goodbye to the water.
Yeah, you.
And was met with another note to read. There was no code on this one, so I didn't really read it, but why the hell are there 23 people sneaking into this place? I went into the tunnel, leading me into a place called Entryway, and the first thing I hear is this bang.
Whoa.
I ignored it and started my hunt until I found out that the bang noise was actually thunder and lightning.
Whoa.
And it didn't scare the shit out of me, like some other games. But I would be lying if I didn't tell you that my heart fluttered and my nuts shrunk. This was the wrong way, but I'm happy I met this pitch black palm tree, and I wonder if him and the plunger have ever crossed paths. So I turned around and walked through this field, taking in this highly saturated rain world with golden lightning. I then jumped down these ramp things and started to look for the secret side compartment because it contains a keycard for a door that lies ahead. Now my pea-brained dumbass short circuits here as I'm approaching the crate with the keycard in it, and I come up to it and I look right at it and I touch it, but not once do I click on it and grab the keycard. I really have to stop playing games after I've smoked, even though it feels mandatory here. Ooh! I thought this would kill me down here, hence the ooh, but I'm supposed to go here. So I drop down and follow towards this big doorway, stumbling into another note. Nothing too important here, but I do see instructions to meet in Building C, which gives me hope that I can still do this while in my current state, unlike the keycard incident. I also ignore the mask statement because who needs a mask when you don't have a face? I am then met with the hardest, most important decision I will have to make during this playthrough so far. Left or right?
Left is best. Always left. Do not pick right. If you're ever asked left or right, you pick left. No matter what you do, it is left and only left.
Apparently, I had already made my decision, as left has always been the only choice in my head. As I approach the dead man, I start to believe that this is not the most promising route for me, meaning my dimensional receptors must be off. That would be the only reason that left didn't work for me just this once. Also, there's an invisible wall here. After my slow walk of shame,
This feels like I'm going nowhere. Like, how big do you have to make the room?
I'm greeted upon the moment that I have been waiting for, the door requiring the keycard. Luckily, my mental obsession towards the keycard had come to an end, and I was greeted with an alternative route, the lazy ladder. So I swallowed my pride, and to the top I went,
Yeah, shut up.
and I hopped down to finally be reaching Flamingo, Miami. Wait a second. This isn't Flamingo or Miami. I had been teleported to a place known as Winter of Neo Detroit. Now this wasn't all bad, as a plane ticket from Detroit to Miami was about 3 hours, and I quite liked the music here once again.
I could watch my shit fly through the pipes all day.
I really could, but I would really prefer more security measures for this bathroom, like a less transparent shower curtain or a door. I jumped out the house and was surprised to see that the beings that I once knew and loved were different looking, and that's when I knew something must have been changing. Just as I was suspecting, my suspicions were right, and the people living in this dimension had suffered the incident. This hombre that I was talking to seemed to be suffering existentially pretty bad after losing his soul, so I didn't take it too personally when he called me a terrible, terrible thing to the name of existence. But I did gentle parent him, and let him know that even without a soul, his words could still affect people, or whatever I am now. So I asked him a few more questions, because he seemed like a smart fella, where I was enlightened on someone to look out for. Mr. Shimoda, a mastermind of some sort. I had also found my next mission in hand, where I was to find a glass bridge after exploring the place a little bit. I found this room telling me how silence is essential, which is a bit ironic after discovering everyone in here has something to tell me. This person didn't seem upset with me, but they were grieving pretty hard. And this person, who had met Mr. Shimoda, gave me more info. Turns out he's a notorious criminal who assassinated the city's biggest bigwig and is now hiding out underground with an organization. I don't know what the difference is between this and an organization, but I'm assuming it's much bigger and scarier. I'm quite terrified of this man now, after learning so much about him in the silence booth, which still doesn't make sense to me. I came across this lovely quote and made my way behind this building, only to come across a bounty informing me that Mr. Shimoda had an alias, Huxyu, and I went to look this name up, and the only thing I saw were fakes, so I quickly tried to check to see if this name was available. Nope, when that didn't work, I tried looking the name up on RBLX Trade, a website that can help with viewing banned accounts. I looked up Mr. Shimoda's alias to come across no one with the exact username, and every time I tried to click on a similar account, it would take longer to load than usual. This was a surefire sign that Mr. Shimoda had properly covered up his tracks indeed and was nowhere to be found. I was also left a note by the trash man begging me not to steal any of his trash cans, and I respected his wish after jumping on them a bit, because that isn't written in the rulebook. Here I instantly develop a new language in my brain to expand my linguistic repertoire. I see. Of course, if anyone knows what they're actually saying, please let me know. I then come back to that lovely note, only to see its true feelings about me parallel to the message on the other side of the wall. I find the glass tunnel and pay my due respect to the trash man.
I'll never forget you.
Before making my way into the subway and leaving this place. I greet this front desk attendant, and she immediately becomes difficult with me after I question her about Mr. Shimoda. She tells me that Mr. Shimoda only waits for those who are worthy, then refuses to elaborate any further. So I prepare myself for anything and proceed to test my luck and die, so I make my way back into the tunnel. And back into the subway, this time ignoring that bitch. I am met with a train leading me to Modessa, which is probably where I need to go next. And a thought strikes me. After seeing this woman coming with me, I feel the urge to tell her that she could be traveling towards potential danger, and right before I can get to her,
"Lady, I need to tell you something."
I am swept under my feet and take a portal to the real train to Modessa. I load in to find no lady and a big warning message telling me about the dangers of this train.
A tachyon!
The last thing I was gonna do was stay for an unprecedented event, so I jumped and somehow landed in the gateway to Modessa. Luckily, it was just the right spot, and I was met face to face with a new inside man. Their name was Alpha Deca, and they told me that the suicide that I had uncovered back in the Rainlands was a phony, and that the true intentions of the act was for an offering. I wonder if the guy owned an island or something. This offering was for the Webinar, who were supposedly the most powerful beings in this entire series of dimensions. I learned that they had materialized an illegal gateway of dimensions that should have never seen the light of day, and that through this tomfoolery, the real world had been experiencing effects that have been creating mirages, which must be a bad thing. Alpha Deca then explained how the Inside Men and the Webinar were at war, trying to settle this illegal rampage, and how more and more Inside Men were being killed mercilessly. They then explained how gates are secret paths to access these dimensions without being seen. Unfortunately, I was unaware of these gates and had been using the civilian's way to traverse these dimensions, and it was too late to hide from the Webinar. I started to panic as these beings were now right on my tail, and I accepted my fate as my next goal was to die in a ritual of dimensions. I was told that my destination after Modessa would be Manchac, into a tall yellow building, and that I should be using a transmitter to avoid any further detection. I hope that Alpha Deca isn't the next victim of the Webinar. I made my way through these colorful crystals as fast as I could, trying not to stress too bad. Shit! And I finally found the portal to Medessa. This place was definitely new, but it had familiar bubbles and lightning to it, which now all made sense. These are elements of these so-called dimensional mirages, and was not right. I progressed through this area and jumped across these structures to find a big purple field with a billboard and 3 colored buildings.
SpongeBob's house. Kind of Squidward's house more, but Squidward's house and Patrick's house.
Labeled alphabetically, I ran into Building C because it was yellow and was taken to Manchak's Building C dimension. This place was eerily calming to me, and I ignored the fact that there were dangerous people that could get me at any moment. After playing badass with this door,
We're not gonna make it!
I made my way up the building and clomb these ladders. I got a bit lost as I just tried to climb a ladder I had already clomb, but I found the right path soon enough. One more ladder and I had made my way to a more decrepit looking part of this place, playing incredibly loud music that reminded me of the relic of a song Jericho's cabin used to have. I stumbled across the transmitter Alpha Deca was talking to me about, where I was relieved to learn that my buddy Alpha Deca was still in one piece, and we telepathically communicated, preparing for my death ritual when I had learned that the webinar had recently contacted the Inside Men. Unfortunately, they had beat us in this dimensional race and had been learning about the history of this world of worlds through a stone tablet they considered the First Era. I asked for a relay of the tablet's message, and I heard what sounded to me like a power-tripping group denying access to the truth about this place because they had discovered things that no man should ever discover. I'm not sure if I want to find out what becoming nothing feels like, but I'm also not sure if I have a choice anymore, as I learned that we had no idea what we were walking into, yet had to do something as it would doom us all otherwise. I also learned that these Inside Men were only 8-dimensional beings, which apparently meant that they couldn't do anything to stop this. Lucky for them, and not for me, I was a 0th dimensional being, meaning dying would ascend me to a point where I alone could put a stop to this madness. I accepted the fact that it had to be me, because my memory of these beings would be the only reason that they are still here, and was informed about how the ritual was about to go down. I learned this phrase, Via Dolorosa, that would end up destroying my own timeline and passing me into my next life. I was to become a god, with no altercations to my person, but an ability to walk through 9-dimensional walls, which sounded pretty cool. I was tasked with a mission to go back to Jericho's cabin with an enormous code for another door. I scrambled to write this code down, but it was gone before I could notepad it, and I was waved off by Alpha Deca and was told not to do anything stupid, then immediately walked into the wrong door. Then I found the portal to Jericho's cabin. Once in this cabin, I hop up on this knife in the wall, and phase right through the wall to reveal a large hidden door. I try to take this code and say it out loud as a means of making it easier to input, and I'm silenced by the gods even higher above the webinar beings. Roblox moderation. Luckily, it gets swept under the rug, and I open this door with my sacred knowledge, this time making sure to cover up my tracks. I'm met with yet another dead Inside Man, but there's no time for grievance. I make my way through and down this tunnel, where a jarring noise catches me off guard. Apologies for the language, I was scared for my well-being. I found another note, this one with a single phrase that I used to fall into another tunnel, which is very dark and long. Into the big portal I go, and I'm met with this dimensional wormhole that definitely doesn't feel right. It's all a bit unnerving, but that doesn't stop me from making my way to the ritual. I come across this sign telling me that Ichi means one, which is just a Japanese translation. I take a right to a detour, which leads to this other sign, which I thought was quizzing me on what 2 is in Japanese. My 0th dimension brain may be stupid, but I know that 2 in Japanese is ni, so I say it out loud and make my way to this structure. But before I commit to my curiosity and walk into this unknown space behind the sign, my gut starts to tell me that something ain't right, and that I don't want to die before I die differently. So I turn around and go the way I'm supposed to, towards the group of 10 beings waiting for my arrival. This one tells me to stand in the middle when I'm ready, and assures me that they will be fine as long as I remember them. I say my goodbyes, and I'm thanked for everything that I've done. Without second guessing, I use my code words, and I am teleported into an unknown question mark world. Its monochrome atmosphere is cold, and I walk through these tunnels and towards these towers in hopes to find the proper direction. I eventually eventually find some sort of lair with a lone door. The door doesn't let me in at first, but quickly warms up to the power of my being and teleports me into a place known as the Dead Air Force. This place is truly blue, which is pretty comforting for me, as I was starting to miss Neohoth 2, True Blue, Electric Boogaloo. This tunnel had hardcore parkour in it, but it was no match for me, and I hopped across with no difficulties, and out I went. I came across this tiny cube and stood on it because I can, then touched this big white cube that took me to a place called Awiel. This place was nice. I was finally back with civilization and got to explore this massive floating city. I knew I was in a different dimensional being when the dialogue of this being was being presented to me in a new, unseen fashion, with words no longer floating above our heads, and now on a bubble thing in front of me. This being was confused with my presence, but directed me to a help center for those like me. On my way to the help center island, I came across someone spectating a Mexican standoff, and clearly, the word Mexican was enough to set this game off and go dark. We also both don't know what a Mexican is. I continued on after seeing this white portal when the lights turned out again and a new atmosphere had been switched in. This red world didn't feel right, so I made my way to this portal as quickly as possible. Oh, that's better. I'm not gonna stay here long enough for the red to come back. One last conversation with this guy before I left, where I let them know what I used to be and what I was now. They understood my metamorphosis into a new being better than I did, and they directed me into the help center. I ran to the portal when my lights went out one more time. Luckily, it wasn't the red. I went to the center, and it was quite groovy here, and I felt my worries melting away. I quick flexed on this guy about my dimensional status, and was told I'm 1 in a million. I then talked to a different being, and I apparently already knew that there were people above us. I quick checked the upper floor, and I was correct. So I made my way up these stairs to get a better lay of the land, and found the ever so urgent meeting I needed to attend. Into the private sector I went, and I was told how this place hadn't been used for over 400 years, and how nothing had been touched since then. I strolled over to room 6, where this desk-ridden man was waiting for me while researching Vaporwave Plaza. I was taken aback when we started to talk primitively with words above our heads instead of through some bubble thing, but I made sure to listen up. Unfortunately, I was unable to know what the gods of geometry looked like due to lost information, but I did learn that they were beings on a much higher plane than I. He confirmed with me that the crew I was running with were dealing with a big oopsies, and the people above them turned me into a god, turning my dimensional status from 0 to 10, which is clearly a big deal. I was then tasked with the fate of walking through this 9th dimensional wall that they keep in room 11, but first, I would need a code to the door. Lastly, he explains that this is a solo journey for me, but tells me what to expect past that wall. I'm also told I will be meeting with the great geometrical god who will lead me to this place of other geometrical gods. I'm then told what to expect to learn from this guy, and given an apology for being so vague. I don't really see this wall of info to be vague, so I start to wonder what kind of treat I'm in for. Lastly, I learned that this guy's memory has been wiped to forget what the faces of these gods looked like, which frightens me because I don't want to be next and forget my bestie, Alpha Deca, and his crew. I leave his office and go into room 11, where I am overwhelmed by the biggest, most colossal looking door I have ever laid my eyes upon. As I climb the ladder to input my code, I start to wonder if this door is even functioning after 400 years, and if I'll be able to close it on the other side. I put in the code, and boom.
Jesus fucking Christ.
That ruptured my eardrums, but the door opened, and that's all that really matters. I was delighted to see a path leading up to a button that would most likely close the door, but I was interrupted by another ear-rupturing noise.
Can't do this.
I didn't want to wait around for the door to explode or something, so I bailed on the door closing mission and continued onwards through this rusty looking door, which led me to the 9th dimensional wall, which sounded like it was calling to me. Upon contact, I was teleported to a place known as Romantic Downfall, and this place was the trippiest of trippy places so far. The terrain around here would move with me, making it incredibly unpredictable and confusing. These yellow blocks turned to black, which seemed like progression, but I was met with a dead end and had to turn back, and right as I was about to get on this new platform, I fell through the cracks of this world and died. I started again, trekking across this path quicker, growing impatient as I hit the same dead end.
I did the same shit.
I was careful not to make the same mistake and rushed up this path to get back the time I lost from dying previously. I made it to the upper layer, where the terrain was becoming more spread out and harder to jump around on when I hit another dead end. So I turned back and made a poor choice, and because of my lack of judgment and gung-ho attitude, I fell again and died.
Pay it! attention, man.
I shook myself out of my stupidity and gave it one last shot where I was still quick, but so focused that I made it past those tricky parts and to these stairs where I found a secret thank you to Surjabond and Fran Tisket.
That's cute.
Which instantly diffused my attitude. At the top of these stairs was a big portal which brought me to a place called False Apotheosis, to find that I was lied to about my physical appearance being unaffected.
I'm bald.
I didn't mind too bad, because the music was a banger here, so I boldly headbanged towards this wall, which seemed inaccessible without doing something first. So I made my way to the other path, and jumped across these large pillars, until I was able to make out a very large sign with some new code words. I had a hunch this was for the previous wall, so I reset and tried it out there. Like magic, the wall dropped and there was a portal with the same words floating above it. And you'll never guess where I was teleported to next. This place was barren, but was inhabited by these purple jumping ball thingies, so I jumped with them to try and fit in. I did this sick jump across the water, and ran to this red symbol thing engulfed in darkness. It was a portal that was spewing this insidious sound and teleported me into another place which was in Japanese, but translates in English to Twilight Castle Realm. It seemed that my presence wasn't tolerated around here, and I was given a splash screen upon my arrival containing multiple shapes beyond basic human comprehension, and a poem which read like a threat or a promise, or both.
I don't like this anymore.
I did not like this anymore, but into the Twilight Castle I went, and I kept a straight line because the last thing I was about to do was turn around. This deep, off-putting growl terrified me into a silence until I had reached the other end of the castle and found these floating palm trees which helped me overcome my fear. Turns out the trees only move when I move, so I felt just like a powerful 10th dimensional god again.
Red light, green light, red light, green light.
At the end of this glass gateway, I walked into a door portal, or a dortal, which teleported me to a place called Blue Nightmare. I thought this would be just like my beloved Neohoth too, but the nightmare part was not lying. The blue tone felt mute and sad, and the silence of the game was deafening. I would occasionally be distracted by this hum of the land that would abruptly get really loud. But I did not stop, and I found the messenger of the great god of geometry sitting patiently on the floor. This guy had some bad news to deliver, and explained to me that the great geometrical god I had been searching for was no longer with us, and had abandoned everything. However, there was one last hope to move forward, a testament and a will, located all the way back in Vaporwave Plaza. I was to find a purple door, which led to another door that required another lengthy code. Then I would have further instructions once past this point. Lastly, we had a name revealed to this great god of geometry. His name was Schlaffy. I was then told of the possibility of meeting said Schlaffy if fate were to allow it, but there was no knowing that for sure. A goodbye sent me on my way yet again, and I pressed this button.
I just shit myself.
Only to be lightly startled by a loud noise. This button had opened a shortcut all the way back to Vaporwave Plaza, and it felt pretty nice to get away from all those hellish dimensions and back into the familiarity of my place of origin. I took a bit of an exploration break before progressing further because I missed this place, and I found a being standing in front of this oscillating geometrical mess. They explained to me that the only reason this thing existed was because it was a testament to the path that I had taken. They then explained to me that time was an enigma to an object like this, and that this object was a gift from the geometrical gods for me, and because I was such a significant figure to them, they had left this thing here. This idea was beyond this thing's comprehension, but they did know that I should at least touch it, and that touching it once will forever imprint itself to me. I asked this being how they knew this, and plot twist, it was because they were my own creation up to this point. We wrapped up, and I gathered the courage to touch this thing, and it did, in fact, leave itself imprinted on me forever, with a badge titled Hostile 10 Demicube Truncation, unless I deleted the badge from my inventory. I then walked over to this building, with the name Prism Corp Virtual Enterprises, and inside was a ladder that I climbed up, just kidding, clomb up, that connected the building to a series of trusses, which connected to more buildings. I followed this truss path until it no longer entertained me, and I jumped off the building, and continued to the purple door and the airlock door that I was destined to enter, and touched this cyan door, which transported me to a place called P-Door. The first thing that I was met with was a button that was most likely referencing Schlaffy's will, so I accepted this information by clicking on it and was put in the next area I have to explore. In this room, I discovered Schlaffy's last message, written on a note pinned to this board. It read clearly, illustrating that he had no mental issues, nor was pressured into writing anything fishy. He then veto carded any other will written under his name and began to list what he would be leaving and for who. He explains that he wants to pull an Oprah and give everybody everywhere an equal share of his property. He then starts speaking directly to me, as I am someone who once possessed a 0th dimensional host and really want to meet this guy. I'm given nothing but the next airlock code and use it right away and make sure to clean up after myself. Following this path for a bit, I found the next portal to a place known as Inordinate Wavelength, where someone named Man was already here. I was too scared to say anything, in case Man was secretly a part of the webinar, and made my way carefully across this skinny bridge in the dark world. This really did suck, as I'm not even sure if you can see the tightrope that I'm walking on right now. This place was stressful, as the path got narrower as I progressed, but I focused up and never died once. Eventually, I found the next portal, and I was teleported to a game, but this game wasn't any game. This was the game. Not City and Abyss, a place called Mirror Format, the first game defining Chapter 2 of my adventure.
Never gotten here. The last time I played this, me and Duncan were in this building, and there was a sign right here that said, "Work in progress. Can't rush art," right? And I thought that was pretty fucking cool. Now there's more, and I don't know if I want to do Chapter 2 yet. I think I'm gonna leave Chapter 2 for another video. Because this is already pretty long.
I decided to cut my journey short here, because cutting it short still gave me an incredibly long video, and the script is about 40,000 characters long. No more narrator voice. I'll tell you what, I probably don't need a reason to make part 2, but I'm gonna sit on it for a while and make some different, shorter style videos first. I highly recommend you check this game out, especially if you're still here. And a big thank you to Salient for making something so special and dear to me that I was inspired to talk about it here for my first video. And thank you for checking this out. You definitely don't have to, but if you want to leave a comment telling me that you watched the whole video through, even after boring you to death and tricking you with my Zoomer style intro, that would tell me a lot. Until we meet again.